MAGA is done. Have you noticed that they haven't been around much at all? There's a couple of reasons for this. The most obvious is that Trump doesn't need them anymore. He literally doesn't need MAGA anymore. There will be no more rallies. He used them and got everything he needed from them. He doesn't need them anymore. He is done with MAGA. And MAGA is in the corner quietly crying because they're done with him. And you want to know why? Because MAGA are food stamps. Yeah. Probably one of the biggest recipients of SNAP, food stamps, welfare, MAGA. Oh, and how about the no taxes on tips and no taxes on overtime, MAGA? That wasn't in the bill. That's not in the bill. That is not on the agenda. They keep telling you that it is, but it's literally not. MAGA are poor. MAGA need Medicaid. MAGA no have Medicaid. Soon. Tariffs hurt MAGA. MAGA no like tariffs. MAGA are farmers. Farmers are MAGA. Farmers hurting. MAGA hurting. Trump is canceling federal programs. A state like California, where I live, they can afford to pick up the tab for those programs for the state of California. But states like Oklahoma, no, they're not going to be able to afford that once Trump kills those federal programs. MAGA no like that. But Trump don't care. Trump no like MAGA anymore. Trump no need MAGA. Trump no more MAGA rallies. So what's MAGA gonna do to change this? That's up to them, because me no care. Trump no care. You no care. MAGA are on their own.
This news from the DNC. Before I do, I want to talk about Jared Goldman as a segue. He's a Democratic House rep from the state of Maine. And for those of you who maybe sometimes ask, what do you liberals or leftists mean by centrist Democrats? Centrist Democrats are generally Democrats who vote at the request of their corporate donor base. First and foremost, centrist Democrats often vote along with Republicans at times because they're both serving the same corporate donor base. And centrists, we believe, many on the left believe, they're the reason that we have Donald Trump, because the Democratic Party historically has been one for the working class, run by the working class. And you could, as a working class American, you could relate to your Democratic representatives. And the centrists, there's so many of them now, you can't relate to them because they're not, they come across as elitists. They don't push for economic policies that are going to help the working class. And when you look at how they vote a number of times along with Republicans just to benefit corporate America, the donor base. That's why a lot of us believe they're the reason we have Donald Trump, why the Democratic voters, a lot of the working class left the Democratic Party to fall for the lies of Donald Trump. Okay, so Jared Goldman is what you call a centrist. When the Democrats a few weeks ago submitted a bill in the House to stop Donald Trump's tariffs, across the board tariffs with no logic, no reason, no economic formulas, nothing, Jared Goldman was the Democrat that voted with Republicans to block it, okay? According to Progressive Punch, he earned a score of an F in terms of how many times he voted with Republicans against policies that would help Americans. And he got a designation of leans Republican. So he's really more Republican light running on a Democratic ticket. Here's the funny thing. The Heritage Foundation ranks every member of Congress, including Democrats. So like if you pull up AOC, oh my God, they give her this horrible grade and all the horrible things she did, to help people like earn a living, get their rights back. And then there's all these initiatives for white nationalists to take her down. But if you pull up Jared Goldman's page on Heritage Foundation, there's nothing. He's not even pissing off the Heritage Foundation. So back to the article I wanted to read and the segue. This is called David Hogg Run Group announces $20 million initiative to support primary challengers to House Democrats. Leaders We Deserve, a political organization led by Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School shooting survivor and Democratic National Committee Vice Chair David Hogg, announced Wednesday that it will spend $20 million to help elect younger leaders, including primary challengers to House Democrats who are in safely Democratic seats. Quote, the first most important thing here is to understand it isn't necessary just out with the old and in with the new. I would say it's out with the ineffective and in with the effective. That is what we are doing here, Hogg, 25, told ABC News' Jay O'Brien Wednesday afternoon. Any person that has eyes can see that we are 27% approval with our base, and we need dramatic change. The move puts Hogg, a member of party leadership, as one of its vice chairs, at odds with the party establishment, the centrists. And they have all the money, by the way, centrists. And other Democratic leaders, also centrists, who usually shy away from supporting challengers to Democratic incumbents. But it comes as Democratic-aligned voters express discontent with how the Democratic Party is responding to the second Trump administration, and as some within the party call for a new generation of leadership and representation in Congress amid consternation with some older House and Senate Democrats. Quote, while President Donald Trump creates new existential crisis every day, too many elected leaders in the Democratic Party are either unwilling or unable to meet the moment, he added in an earlier statement. So I'm not going to read it all, but he's already being attacked, by the Nancy Pelosi's and you name it. The power that the centrist Democrats, the established Democrats have across this country is crazy. I commend him. I know there's a lot of criticism that he's really left or really extreme, but I support this. What I'm committed to doing is paying attention to who his organization is endorsing. Midterms are coming up, and I'm looking to see that the organization's endorsing somebody running against Jared Golden in the Democratic primaries in May, just before 2026 midterm elections. So there you go.
So something really weird is going on with the Trump administration over the last 2 or 3 days. And let me just preface this by saying during his first term, Trump surrounded himself with evil and vile human beings, yes. But they knew the laws and they kind of knew what they were doing. Like, they weren't experts, but they were okay. What is the problem this time around is that he just selected people who pat him on the head and tell him good job and are his friends and acquaintances from the WWE and I guess Fox and Friends. So they don't have any government expertise. It's not like these people are a bunch of lawyers even who are kind of familiar. But because that has been his way, his approach this time, I think we're going to start seeing through the cracks. See, they're trying to build a shield or a veil, but over the last 2 days, there have been some incidences of that sort of falling away. First, take a look at this clip from Wednesday, April 16th this week.
Does anyone have any questions for Patty? For me? No? I have a question. No? Anybody? Okay. I'll see you all later.
Well, that was weird. We have evidential proof in front of our eyes and with our ears that people had questions, and then she just pretended not to see or hear them. Way to go, Caroline with 3 Ks. But then this happened today after Dr. Oz was sworn in, and this is even weirder. And that whole everybody out, everybody get out right now, no photos, all of those words were again coming out of Caroline with 3 Ks mouth. So what is going on? I don't have an answer to this other than there's a lot of things they don't want us to know or see, which is a duh moment for me. But why? What is this about? Does anyone out there have an idea of what this could be or why this keeps happening in the last week?
All right, it is a white shirt day. I know I'm not wearing my white shirt, but pretend I am because I didn't want to sit indoors all day and I can't wear a white shirt into the outdoors because it'll get destroyed. Anyhow, we need to talk about something rather serious, which is China published a white paper letter on the 9th, and they chose number 9 for a specific reason, 9th of April here, outlining the problems they're having with the United States in terms of trade and economics. And in that paper is effectively a not so subtle threat to the United States. Now, back in December, Donald Trump said that any country, any BRICS country specifically, that would circumvent the United States currency, the US dollar, would face a 100% tariff. Now, in this paper, they reaffirmed that they are going ahead to be working in local currencies, making trade agreements and working with banking systems that are not the US SWIFT system, that do not utilize US dollar. So that's them basically giving a big finger to Donald Trump, saying we're going to ignore that threat. And right now, China's under 145% tariffs, right? Well, in the paper, they were very clear that they've done everything that was required of them legally in terms of maintaining trade agreements, in terms of importing more US goods like they agreed to in the last round of negotiations. They have capitulated in terms of making sure that there are strong IP protections and copyright protections and trademark protections and enforcing that and creating new legislation for it and new policing basically around that specifically. And so in this paper, they're going through and they are very, very carefully and structurally laying out all of the ways that they can hurt the US if the US decides to continue this aggressive action against them. And the reality is, they have the power effectively to eliminate 1/3 of the US economy by ignoring these things like IP protection and trademarks and copyrights. Because if there isn't a trade agreement, which technically now there isn't because Trump did violate the trade agreement, so they could say on a legal basis that they're throwing it out the window, it doesn't apply anymore. And there goes all of those protections. And one thing they've also clearly laid out in that is that they were enforcing a policy that there wouldn't be forced assimilation of technology, and that's basically reverse engineering. Now, that's something they're very, very good at. And they have been for a very long time. I don't think anybody has ever been ignorant of that. And in this situation where they're going, if you continue to tariff us like this, we are going to throw these agreements out the window, that puts the US in a very tedious position. Actually, not even tedious. That puts them in the worst position they could possibly ever be in. Because China, first off, has started manufacturing the RISC-V chip, which is a processor chip in competition with like Intel and AMD and stuff like that, except it's open source. And open source technologies tend to accelerate, they tend to evolve much more quickly than proprietary stuff. So the fact they're manufacturing this and putting this out there for anybody to buy is a big thing. It's threatening basically the entirety of the US chip production. They also are working on technology, and they've actually published it now, that they can print a computer chip that's two-dimensional effectively. It's only 1 atom thick, which is something that Intel said they're going to do by 2027. So they're ahead of them in that game. They just came out saying they managed to run a fusion reactor for over 1,000 seconds, which is now a new record. No one's managed to do it more than, I think, 500 seconds. So they doubled the record. So they are leaders in technology now, and it's not surprising when you look at their education system, because the US has their Ivy League, which is a mix of like legal, arts, sciences, yada, yada, yada. China's universities are primarily technological universities, and they produce twice as many graduates out of their Ivy League system, which is called the C9, I believe, or 9C. There's 9 of them that are qualified in their terms as Ivy League schools. There's 8 in the United States, but they produce twice as many graduates. But they actually have about 38 schools that are at the Ivy League, producing like almost 1 million students. So the United States is in some serious trouble, because now you have a very qualified civilian workforce that is capable of outpacing the US workforce without any issues at all whatsoever. So the United States really needs to back off on their position, and Canadians need to be aware of this too, because Mark Carney actually said the biggest threat right now is China, and he's not wrong. Because if you're on the bad side, yes, they are a threat to you. If you're on their good side, great trade buddy, or can be a great trade buddy if the agreements work out well. So I would expect you see him to addressing those tariffs against China ASAP, because right now we're in a very bad position. We don't want to be in this position where we have tariffs on them, where they waited several months, because we put them back in October and they only this last month said that, hey, okay, we're going to tariff Canada as well. And we should be looking at that, restructuring that, and making sure we have a good trade agreement with them, because we don't want to be in a position like the U.S. is. Now, good thing is most of our economy is based off resources and travel or tourism. There is manufacturing, of course, but we're lucky we're not in the position the United States is in. Let me put it that way. Right now, I'm looking at the United States going, oh, you guys are cooked, because there's no way Donald Trump is going to walk back voluntarily his position on China. Peppers. And they are in a position that no country has ever been in. We're looking at two countries where one has the power to economically wipe out the other. I mean, just look at the resourcefulness of the Chinese population over the last couple of weeks here. They're now on TikTok selling stuff directly to customer, circumventing all the middlemen that be making money in the United States. They're going to remove $3 to $5 trillion worth of US GDP by simply doing business directly with customers, because that money will be going directly to China. It will not be circulating in the US economy. And that is the amount that basically retailers make off of Chinese goods every year. It's between $3 and $5 trillion. So if those goods are not at those retailers, Walmart, Walgreens, all these major department stores, just look around your house, see how many things are made in China. When those are no longer on the US market for those companies to make profits off of, what do you think is going to happen to the employment rate? The unemployment rate specifically. What do you think is going to happen to corporate profits? Do you think these stores are going to be able to keep running when there's 145% tariffs on China? No, they're not going to be able to do it. Will China keep running? Sure. Yeah, they'll survive. It's only 2% of their GDP, right? The US is looking at a position where, 1/6 of their GDP could be wiped out. Potentially 1/3 of their GDP could be completely wiped out if China no longer cooperates with them. And the reality is the Trump administration under the Mar-a-Lago Accord wanted to devalue the US currency while maintaining global reserve currency status, which isn't going to happen. And of course, his followers don't know that they're trying to devalue the currency 20 to 30%, and they're effectively going to have 20 to 30% less money to work with, because anything being imported will be more expensive in terms of what they can afford to buy. So yeah, it's a pretty shitty situation for them, and they're going to fail at this posturing. They can't succeed at it. So yeah, we might actually be witnessing the downfall of a nation in real time, so to speak. I don't feel like it's going to be a slow, drawn-out thing, especially if China decides to go, nope, we're not cooperating anymore, because the U.S. can't sanction them. They can't do anything to them. They're too big. They don't have control over their banks. They don't have control over their currency. There's nothing they can do. There's literally nothing they can do. Yeah, so they're in a... Yeah. Anyways, that's all I got for you.
I don't know who needs to hear this, but just...
It's time to speak up. So a few days ago, Stephen Miller said that anyone who preaches hate against America will be deported. And hate, according to Stephen Miller and the Trump regime, is speaking out against the president. Speaking out against the current administration is now, according to this regime, that is preaching hate against America. So here's what I'm going to need all you guys to do. All of you who talk so badly about Joe Biden, everybody that drug President Obama's name through the mud, I'm going to need you guys to go ahead and self-report. The government's sending out letters now to people that they believe need to self-deport. And so I am going to start sending all you guys letters to self-deport, because you've broken the law now. You've broken the law now, according to what President Trump has said the law is. When you speak out against a current administration, when you speak out against a president, apparently that's preaching hate against America. And you guys have been doing that for a long time. So I'm so sorry to tell you, but it's time for you to self-deport, because you have been preaching hate against America. When you spoke out against what you didn't like about President Biden, when you spoke out against what you didn't like about President Obama, apparently that's preaching hate against America. Do you understand how this works now? Can you see for even a second that what we are doing here is not preaching hate against America? It is standing up for what we believe America is. So this goes both ways. You cannot have it that speaking out against an administration is preaching hate against America unless you guys go first, because you've been doing it for a lot longer. So go ahead. I'll give you at least 30 days notice. I think that's what they're giving people, 30 days. That should be enough to wrap up your life and deport yourself to a new place, right? Oh, you're an American citizen? Guess what? According to Stephen Miller, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because anyone includes American citizens. So there you go. Go out there and love your neighbor.
Because you believe something and you say it over and over and over again doesn't make you right. So I posted a video talking about undocumented immigrants, and let me just start right here. It is not illegal immigrant. Saying illegal immigrant is wrong both legally and factually, because you cannot be an illegal person. If they don't have the proper documentation, that is a civil crime, okay? So undocumented immigrant, not illegal immigrant. Ugh. Anyway, undocumented immigrants still have constitutional rights like due process. Okay, so that is not up for debate. That is a fact. So all of the people in my comment section screaming at me that I'm spreading misinformation, no, I'm not. No, I'm not. Felons can vote in most states. Felons also have rights. Inmates have rights. I've been screaming about that my 7-year-long online career. Now I have to scream about the fact that undocumented immigrants actually have constitutional rights. It is not hard to Google that just to fact check me. I don't get shit right all the time. I have to fact check things constantly. But saying that they don't have constitutional rights because they came here illegally is not accurate. And just because you come here illegally does not mean that you are an illegal immigrant. You are an undocumented immigrant. It's like if I break the law and I'm speeding, that is a traffic violation. There's different sectors and levels of law. If you think that the Trump administration is going to stop with just undocumented immigrants and he's not going to go after other people, you are dead wrong.
Criminals next. Yeah. I said homegrown's next. The homegrown's built. You got to build about 5 more places. Yeah, that's fair. All right. If it's a homegrown criminal, I have no problem. Now, we're studying the laws right now. Pam is studying. If we can do that, that's good. And
there is no law that will allow him to deport U.S. citizens that break the law. There is no law that covers that, to the best of my knowledge. I'm not a lawyer. I just common fucking sense. He's a felon. I don't understand why everyone doesn't see the problem here. He also wants to make sure that people that are not U.S. citizens don't vote, and that's not a problem. It's a non-issue issue because 0.003% of people vote when they are not U.S. citizens. It's like 500 people out of 170 million American voters. So that's not a problem. But he wants to make sure that you have documentation saying that you were born in America. So your driver's license doesn't say that. Military ID doesn't say that. You don't have to disclose your immigration status to law enforcement. Actually, up when cops ask questions, okay? You don't have to disclose that information to them, but by making us all have little things on our ID saying that we were born in America, it's giving something that I think maybe we're forgetting about in our history, you know, as humans. And I'll end with this quote. First, they came for the socialists, and I did not speak because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak because I was not a Jew. And then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me. That is the quote at the end of the Holocaust Museum. Have a good day.
I want to read the list.
Why is this country going down the toilet real fast? That's easy. That's because the poorly educated people in this country who are addicted to lies and addicted to propaganda elected a man who's addicted to lying, addicted to power, and addicted to other things that are flying out his nose, who appointed a man who's addicted to Special K, who's taken things away from hardworking Americans to give to wealthy people, who also appointed a man who's addicted to Mr. Brownstone to be the head of Health and Human Services, who also appointed a man who's addicted to alcohol to be the Secretary of Defense, who also had the loyalty of plenty of other addicts do his lying and dirty work for him to help him take this country down by implementing Project 2025, written by people who are addicted to gambling. In this country, you need to take a drug test to be a truck driver, but not to make decisions that impact millions of people. That shit's got to change.
I was talking to a mega cult today. on a live. And I went over the history of this country, telling them that America hasn't been great. America's not great. It's never been great for everybody. I went over, slavery and how this country was designed for 21-year-old white men that owned land to have rights, and how the 3/5 clause, and how women didn't have credit and couldn't have no-fault divorce, how Asians were put in internment camps. And he said, I agree with some of what you're saying. I said, I didn't ask you to agree with it. That's history. It's not open to opinion. That's what happened. Well, progress is happening. See, that's a privileged thing to say. Because my demographic has never been told I couldn't drink from a water fountain, or sit on a bus, or forced to pick somebody's cotton, or told I couldn't vote, or I couldn't have credit. Never had a protest just to be equal as someone that looks like me. And that's what you MAGA people don't understand, or you just don't give a shit about. Or it's a combination of both. We're progressing. We're not perfect. No. I got snappy with them too, because that's such a BS argument. This country was designed this way. It's not like this country was designed where everybody was treated equally, and then over the course of history, maybe it became more racist or discriminatory. It was designed that way since day one. And they don't want to admit that. They don't want to be told that America is not great and it never has been great for everybody. Because that truth interferes with their version of white America, where they wake up to Freedom Wheaties and they do the Pledge of Allegiance before they eat their Freedom Wheaties, and then they feed their pet bald eagle, then they go to work with their 1776 painted on their truck and 48 American flags and their Donald Trump shirt and their Donald Trump condoms and their Donald Trump shoes and their American flag hat, and they think that somehow that makes them a patriot. But when someone like me asks them about the actual history of this country, they don't want to hear about it. And that's what we're fighting right now. Part of this country, more people that look like me, I pray to God, are going to say what I just said because it needs to be said every damn day. And you have part of this country, in my demographic, that are just ignorant. And they only want to maintain the white supremacist foundation of this country. That's what all this is about. It's not about taxes or tariffs. This is about the white male patriarchy. Period. End of story. That's not open for discussion or debate. Those are just facts. Now, if you don't like that, that's too damn bad. That's on you. Then you give us a year when it was great for everybody in this country. Go ahead, we'll wait. I imagine we'll be waiting for a damn long time because you're never going to come up with it. And the fact that you won't even take 5 seconds to think about maybe that American flag that you worship and adore like it's a religious church, maybe someone that doesn't look like you and I 150 years ago, 100 years ago, didn't have the same rights and don't see that flag as a symbol of freedom. Maybe, just maybe, they see it as a symbol of oppression. I dare you to walk in someone else's shoes for a minute and think about that. And look up actual history. Go look up Black Wall Street. Have a good day.
So what is Donald Trump whining about this morning? Well, what isn't he whining about, to be honest? But in particular this morning, he is directing his ire at the pollsters because his poll numbers are collapsing, so naturally, he wants to investigate the pollsters for election fraud. You heard that right. Donald Trump wrote in a social media app that the polls from the failing New York Times and ABC Washington Post about a person, Donald J. Trump, me, are fake polls from fake news organizations. That's in all caps, of course. Donald Trump says these people should be investigated for election fraud, and add in the Fox News pollster while you're at it. He says they are negative criminals, I don't know what that means, who apologize to their subscribers and readers after I win elections big. Much bigger than their poll showed I would win. Loose a lot of credibility, he spelled lose wrong, and then go on to cheating and lying for the next cycle, only worse. They suffer from Trump derangement syndrome, and there is nothing that anyone or anything can do about it. They are sick. This follows Donald Trump's many attacks on the media so far, including when Donald Trump sued a pollster, Ann Seltzer, after the election because he didn't like the results from her poll. Trump clearly cannot handle the reality that the American people just aren't very into him. We're going to continue to follow these stories and more, so make sure you're following our account right now, and remember to add the Midas Touch podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
America is about to learn how good we actually used to have it. The ports are empty. Food isn't coming in. Goods are not coming in. Everyone who works in the shipping industry is saying we are about to face a crisis much bigger than the empty shelves during COVID. We have felt entitled in this country to freedom, to democracy, to human rights, to unlimited food and crap to buy. We got lazy, and we did nothing to maintain those freedoms and those rights. We assumed that other people would do it. We stopped valuing our own education. We stopped reading. We stopped being kind to other people. We got completely hell-bent on having more stuff, on having more money, on having more whatever, having more fucking Botox in our faces. It's a false ladder that we were taught to climb. And I don't know if this current iteration of Americans has it in them to survive the Great Depression Part 2, but I don't know if we're going to have a choice.
Breaking news right now, it is Monday, April 28th, 2025, around 1:50 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt just wrapped what was considered the first influencer White House press briefing, and an influencer had asked her about Trump and where he stands on the Second Amendment. That is the one obviously surrounding pew-pews. It is my belief that the press secretary just insinuated that it is okay to use such pew-pews, and it is important to have pew-pews in order to fight off quote-unquote illegal immigrants. Their words, not mine. Watch this clip.
Are law-abiding gun owners, and as you mentioned, is a ardent supporter of the Second Amendment. It's more important now than ever as we see violent crime rates in our inner cities. I've said this repeatedly over the past 4 years. The Second Amendment was never more important than when we had an illegal immigrant crime epidemic spiking in this country. Law-abiding Americans have a constitutional right to defend themselves, and the president absolutely supports that. But to national reciprocity, we do need Congress's help on.
See, the thing about the Trump administration is they send out these dog whistles. That was a dog whistle and an okay, a thumbs up to utilize your Second Amendment right against someone who you believe to be an undocumented individual. They are again doubling, tripling, quadrupling, whatevering down on the fact that anyone who is undocumented must therefore be a violent criminal. Think about the messaging there. And no, she didn't come out and say it outright. She didn't say, use your pew-pews against quote-unquote illegal immigrants. But she did say it was okay. Let me know your thoughts on this. I'm sorry I didn't catch the very beginning of that. It was literally a screen recording as it was happening live. Any updates I have on this, I will share.
So apparently the Burger King south of the border has signed an executive order. He's good at that. That truckers, if you cannot speak English fluently, you're not going to be admitted into the United States. There are Mexican truck drivers, there are Québécois truck drivers. Qu'est-ce qu'ils vont faire? S'ils arrivent aux douanes, puis l'anglais, c'est pas parfait, they're not going to be let in. Like, tabarnak, what's going on here? And maybe they're going to be detained, and maybe they're going to be sent to El Salvador. Who knows? Tabarnak, like, they don't want nobody crossing that border. That's what I see. The Burger King does not want no one crossing the border. Personne de traverser les douanes. Ça, c'est clair et certain.
Breaking news today. Democratic congressman from Michigan, for the first time since Donald Trump's return to the White House, officially filed articles of impeachment. Today's Democrats actually introduced 7 articles of impeachment in the U.S. House of Representatives. And here is what they are accusing Trump of. Abuse of power, obstruction of justice, violating the Constitution's emoluments clause. That basically means that the president is not allowed to profit off of the office, inciting violence, undermining free and fair elections, threatening the independence of the judiciary, and using the presidency for personal political gain. In short, the Democrats are saying Trump is tearing at the very fabric of American democracy. Now, let's be clear. The Republicans control Congress right now. These impeachment articles probably will not remove Trump, at least not today. But this moment matters. It's a historic shot across the bow. It's a warning that even under Trump's second presidency, Americans are not backing down. The fight for our democracy is still alive, and Democrats are laying the groundwork to hold Trump accountable, not just today, but for history. And if Trump's chaos keeps piling up, these articles could become the starting point of something much bigger. So watch who defends the Constitution. Watch who turns a blind eye to the power. Follow me now on Instagram and Substack for more. This is not over. This is literally just the beginning.
Well. It's Monday, baby. Now, I know you've seen the news about the polls. Yes, honey, things are not working out in Daddy's favor. So much for flooding the zone. See, the thing about flooding the zone is that you need to build an ark first for your people. But you didn't, did you? You built no ark for your people and you flooded the zone, thinking you had complete control, while the rest of us knew you were going to flood the zone, so we built an ark. And we've been floating around in the flooded zone, picking up those that you left behind. Yes, honey. That's why those poll numbers reflect 70-something odd % of voters are not happy with dumpy pants. Yes. We were prepared for you to flood the zone, but unfortunately for you, the thing that you were not prepared for is facts over fiction, because facts just so happen to be our forte over here, baby. Yes. And if you want to hear some facts, I'll bring some to you. Daddy Dumpy Pants, every single thing that he's tried to do, well, is under review. Yes, honey, he's not getting his way. Things are not playing out like he expected them to play. So what has he done today? He's took to his not-so-true social to go on one rant after another. First, he attacked the polls and the news. You know, anytime you say something Daddy don't like to hear about his disapproval, dear, he immediately calls fake fucking news. But either way, that wasn't good enough just to take to not-so-true social and bitch and whine about the polls. He's losing his base. That's what happens when you put a flood all over the place with misinformation. You forgot to build an ark for your own people. But us over here, we knew the play was to flood the nation with misinformation. So we built an ark of facts. And as we float around the United States, we're going to pick all those up that you left drowning on the ground. Don't you worry about that. Now is the time, by the way, to kick it on up. Yes, turn it up a few notches. It's time to flood the zone with our own factual information. On every platform, by the way, because we're making headway today. Anyway, it wasn't just good enough for him to let it on go. He had to continue to rant and rave, and he's back on that shit today about making Canada the 51st state. And he's also going to appear tomorrow in Michigan. Another rally, friend. Tell me you're scared without telling me you're scared. You are a sitting president and you still feel the need to tour the nation and hold rallies. Is that just to prop up your weak-ass ego? Or is it to bring more hate to the plate to try to win back those that you have lost over the past few days? That's exactly what that is. He's trying to bring the hate back. He's losing his base. How do I know that he's trying to bring the hate back besides the fact that he's throwing himself another rally again? Well, it would be this, my friend. This is how I know that he's trying to reach out to his base, who is slowly slipping away, and he's bringing hate back because, well, He's bringing Columbus Day back from the ashes. The Democrats did everything possible to destroy Christopher Columbus, his reputation, and all the Italians that love him so much. They tore down his statues and put up nothing but woke, or even worse, nothing at all. Now, I know you may not know this, Dad, and you would think that they would, since they're so very obsessed with genetics. It just so happens, honey, that the genetic ancestry of Christopher Columbus was not Italian. He lied about that too, just like he lied about finding an unfound nation. Yes, turns out his genetic ancestry would make him Jewish. I know, facts over fiction, but either way, he's trying to rile up some hate today. Unfortunately for Daddy, a lot of people have decided to put that hate to the side because it's getting in the way of their health care, their tax money, their education, their food, and oh, least we not forget, baby, it's gotten in the way of their very own hate play. You see, there's too many factions of hate within MAGA. Some of MAGA hates Muslims, some hates Jews, some hate black, some hate brown, some hate me, some hate you. And while hate brought them together, it will be their very own hate that rips them apart. You can't have that many people in the same goddamn room who hate each other before something goes down, honey. Happy fucking Monday. It's time to flood the zone with our own facts over fiction.
My thoughts on the Unfuck America tour from a cult perspective, because if you're going to go out there, you need to understand you are dealing with a cult. These aren't just regular folks that want to have a conversation. This is a cult. And when you show up with the name Unfuck America, you are showing up as if you are the heroes to fix everything that they have fucked up. And I say they because when you're in a cult, they identify with their leader. So anything you say about him, you're saying about them. Their brain doesn't have a difference in there. That's a cult mind. So they're not separated out from that yet. So as long as you attack them or get your digs or your FAFOs on them, nothing will help. Nothing will help. Because just being a Republican in general for a long time has become a religion. And I think maybe for some Democrats too. But when you're in a religion and if someone else of another religion starts talking to you about their religion as if it's true, you may sit there and be polite or go, oh, that's interesting. But you don't take it to heart because obviously it's not true. It's another religion. So they'll listen to you, but it's not really going to take hold because it's just another religion. And they're usually taught that outside religions are wrong and bad and out to hurt their religion. So if you're religious at all, you can understand if someone came up to you and tried to pitch their religion to you, you'd be like, oh, when Mormon missionaries come to your door, you're polite, but it's also like, okay, thank you, bye. So, and they may come away going, oh yeah, they listened to us. We think we really got there. No, you didn't. You didn't. So I suggest changing the name, and I would change it to something more like Unifying America. Because what we want to do with a cult is, so cults are based on opposition. And right now, Trump has created the Democrats as the opposition. We're the deep state, we're the devil, all that stuff. So we have to create another opposition that we can join forces in, and that to unify us and to go after them, and that would be the mega corporations. And so the focus needs to be there, like, hey, this is what we aren't getting because that's what they're getting. You have to turn it to them because you're never going to win all the debates on abortion, LGBTQ, like you're dealing with a religion. So for right now, the best thing to do would be to turn their focus and always, why does the mega corporations need so much money? Why do they get all of this and we get so little? And just keep reframing it that way to where, why do they need so much power? And show examples of how much they get and how much we get. I just think that's so much more effective, and it will start to create so if we do this together, we could take them down together. And I wouldn't use Elon's name. I wouldn't go personal because they identify with Elon Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, Trump, because in America, especially Republicans, like that's who you're supposed to be. Especially these white men, like when you grow up, that's who you're supposed to be. So if you attack those people, you're attacking those white guys. So don't do that. Stick with mega corporations, BlackRock, because I've also seen Republican creators on here talk about wanting to buy a house and they couldn't buy one. And they have money and they were like, we just can't buy it. Someone keeps buying up all the houses. And the Republicans in there were talking about BlackRock and the other ones I can't think of right now. And they were frustrated by them. Now they're not linking that to Trump and the other billionaires, but they were angry with them. So if you can make a link of how we have to defeat them to get what we want, I think you're going to have a much better chance. And if you walk in with something called unifying America, then they're not on their back foot in a defense position, because unfuck America is defense right there. Annoyance, agitation. Like you walk in as the enemy thinking you're wearing a cape, and that is very off-putting to a lot of people. So while I think it could be a good idea, the approach has to be different and the name has to be different. You really have to come in with the attitude of, we have to be allies and friends to do this, to take on them, and talk about how neither side of our government works for us. They're all bought and paid for. Talk about the lobbyists, talk about the money in governments, because for a lot of them, this comes down to money. So just help them understand where the money is impacting both sides and how we have to change that so that we actually can make America great again.
Hey, I want to ask you a question about where you get your news today. Who are your favorite, most trusted sources of news in the new media ecosystem? Is it Midas Touch? Is it Aaron Parnas? Is it Democracy Docket, Brian Tyler Cohen, Legal Eagle? I realize I just listed a whole lot of white dudes. Who are the women? Who are the people of color? Who are the non-binary folks that you trust to get your news that are not those big corporate legacy media conglomerates? Who we know are openly pandering to Trump. Several of them have sold out to him, buckling and folding in lawsuits they could have easily won. They're really careful not to offend him with what they say. Who are you following on Blue Sky that's a trusted source of news? Legal folks like Anna Bauer and Katie Fang. Maybe you're reading The Bulwark or Mother Jones. What about podcasts? Who are you listening to for podcasts? Who do you watch on TikTok and Instagram Reels and YouTube? Where are you getting your news from in the new media ecosystem? This is a question that came up during our Indivisible call this past week. Indivisible is a pro-democracy grassroots organization that I'm proud to be a part of. And every week we have this national call where folks ask questions of the two co-founders, Ezra and Leah. And one of the questions from this week was about new media, and specifically, should Indivisible push Democrats in Congress, well, and not just in Congress, Democratic governors as well, to go on right-leaning podcasts, do interviews with social media influencers? Or should they be looking to more centrist and left-leaning folks in the new media? We know legacy media is not really getting the word out. And I don't want to discount the fact that we are seeing electeds, especially folks like Jasmine Crockett and Robert Garcia, who are on legacy media news all of the time doing interviews. They're clear, articulate, outspoken. They are speaking truth about what is happening. And I think there definitely is a place for folks to go on Fox News, but it has to be the right kind of folks. It is the persuasive place for Democratic electeds to be, or anybody in the pro-democracy movement, right? Maybe it's some other kind of community organizer. Is the right place for them to be really on right-wing podcasts? Or not even right-wing, just centrist and right-leaning podcasts? The question was asked because the right-wing media ecosystem is really good at what they do. They've been fantastic at red-pilling young men, right? Why are so many Gen Zers all voting for Trump? Why do so many of them like Trump? Well, they all got red-pilled by the Jordan Petersons and the Charlie Kirks and the Andrew Tates. They got sucked down the alt-right pipeline through the podcast, community. They're really good at hooking folks and drawing them in. I mean, obviously they have the benefit of being able to lie and pander to their outrage and their anger, but we could still be able to reach them through their legitimate anger with the truth. So while it's great that Ezra, one of the co-founders of Indivisible, is doing things like putting op-eds in the Washington Post and the New York Times, that's great. Is that really reaching the correct demographic? And who is the correct demographic? Well, we know that a big chunk of folks on the left and the right they're on new media, right? They're not going to read that quote in the New York Times. And I think that's very true for me. I would not be reading any legacy media if I was not doing this for my job now. Kind of political stuff I was consuming before the election was I would watch Joy Reid and Chris Hayes on MSNBC, and I would listen to the Sisters-in-Law podcast. And I never was big on Twitter, ever, but once Musk bought it, I deleted my account. And I didn't really understand why so many journalists and so many pundits loved Twitter. Well, I'm on Blue Sky now, and I love it. I get a lot of my information from Blue Sky. I follow a lot of attorneys, a lot of pro-democracy groups, a lot of folks in new media. And that is sort of how my news gets filtered to me, for the most part. I go seek out legacy media only because of this job. Otherwise, probably most of what I would be consuming for news now would be off of Blue Sky. One of the good things about pivoting my work from, being out in the garden to this right now, because it's a necessity, is that I discovered Blue Sky. But I want to get to what Leah said. She said the reality is that over multiple decades, folks have tried to build a left-wing 24/7 market for the news, and it's never materialized. It doesn't work. There is not the appetite for it that there is for the nonstop grievance politics of the right. It just doesn't work on a liberal or progressive side. It's not fueled by hate and rage and, racism and misogyny and bigotry and disinformation. So there isn't that appetite. There isn't a market for nonstop progressive media 24/7 like there is for right-wing grievance politics. Leah went on to say, actually, you and I, we're all really invested in political news, but the vast majority of people, they don't really want to consume political media. Doesn't mean that they're not consuming politics from other sources. And I thought this was such a good point. Leah said, I don't really want us to try and build a bunch of left-wing podcasts. It's fantastic that the Midas Touch has broken in and become the #1 podcast. They beat out Joe Rogan over and over again. That's much needed. That's important. But there isn't really space for like 8 or 12 of those folks. Leah said what she wants to see is the momfluencer, who mostly talks about, mom influencer stuff, remodeling her laundry room or something about kids' crafts. But in the context of her work, she just drops a mention about how upset she is that RFK Jr. is trying to get rid of flu vaccines. It's that kind of organic, filtered news that is contextualized within people's real lives. It's that kind of subtle messaging that appeals to people because that's sort of the way your average person who's relatively disinterested in politics hears about politics and how it fits in their lives. So Leah was saying, how do we infuse our messages into cultural spaces that don't typically have all that much to do with politics? How do we get our messaging out to people who don't consider themselves political, but they do want a country that actually works? Where is that space in the new media ecosystem? And do you think Leah's right? Or are there other folks that you are listening to and you think could have a broader reach, that you think are the correct conduits through which we need to be messaging? Of course, I, as a permaculture person, I'm going to be looking at the principle use and value diversity. Right? In permaculture, we always have that emphasis on how important it is to fold in different elements in order to create a more resilient system. Not just more resilient, but more productive and effective and stable. So I would argue it's not just the mom influencers. It's not just the quote in the New York Times. It is all of this new media as well. So what does it look like to build that diversified group? Who would you list out? We're building out a catalog of folks with various platforms that could be useful in the fight for democracy. Who would be in that catalog for you?
There are a lot of bad things going on, and they're happening to good people. And that is the way of things sometimes. The student loan thing that's going to happen, people that are in default on their student loans are going to get garnished on their paychecks. There is, people that are homeowners that their escrow accounts are doubling, and because of the insurance and the taxes, so their $2,500 a month payment is going up to $3,500, $3,700 a month. The renters that are at the hands of, cutthroat landlords are having their situation raised, in addition to their car insurance going up and their maintenance and God forbid car payments going up. There are more than a few people who were talked into the PPP loan during the pandemic, and Now, the worm is turned on that, and they're going to have to face up to what they do for the $50,000 they took out and used it on living expenses when nobody had jobs. And in general, the economy is going through a correction, and people are losing money in their stock market, and overall housing values are going down. And I think all of this is going to get repaired if you can stay level-headed, look for ways that you can improve your daily situation, do the best that you can. But the most important thing that I want to tell you, and I don't tell people what to do, I tell them what I've been through and what I learned from that, and from that people can figure out, what it is that they want to do. But none of this means anything except for your relationships that you have with your people, your children, your wife, your husband, your grandchildren, your friends that are closer than friends, their family, your grandparents, people in your circle, people that you're helping, people that are helping you. Those are the only things that matter, and those are the only things that last. When you go through that halocline, at the end, you get to take all the stuff inside that you learned and you garnered and you created those lovely memories. You get to keep all that. You get to take that with you, and we're all going to meet on the other side. And the rich ones, the very rich ones, are going to have all of that holy wealth that is created in here. And whether you had a $130 million mansion, or you lived in a camper and you had to do some other things, no one cares. In the spirit realm, no one cares. Just know that none of it means anything. And I have been so poor that I couldn't even see straight. And I had wonderful, wonderful times. When I was in college, I was a resident hall advisor, and I got room and board, and I got paid $75 a month for my spending money. And of course, that was 1981, something like that, when I was in college. We used to play spades, and we used to play hearts down in the lobby, and I had the most wonderful time of my life. And I was almost, when I was a hall director of the football dorms at Richards Hall, Utah State, that was also super fun, only I made $750 a month for doing that job, going to school. And I couldn't imagine a better life. I was more rich then than I've ever been. And no phone bill, no internet, no heating bill, no insurance, no house payment, no rent. I mean, I got room and board at that job too. And since then I've been, at all levels, and I've experienced some success. But I was going through a bunch of stuff. My wife and I are decluttering because I've been flat on my back for 2.5 years, maybe more, not really been able to do much. I'm just, I've been hiring people to move some things around because I couldn't lift more than 10 pounds for 2 years. And so we're getting through a bunch of junk, and I'm going through a bunch of stuff in my office that's been stashed away. And I had a bucket of saving stuff, and I had a bunch of buckets of stuff that I had to go through. And there's 5 trash buckets and 1 small bucket of things that I'm keeping. And almost everything that went in the keep bucket had something to do of a memory that I had with my friends and my family. And those are the things that I keep. And it reminds me of all the times in my life that I've really been happy. And I know people are struggling. I'm going to do a couple of videos on mindset and action items of things that you can concentrate on rather than, concentrating on just crushing, no way out type things. And, I guarantee you it's going to be okay. I promise you it's going to be okay. And I'm going to work on some different ways that we can make sure it's okay working together. And, this too shall pass. And, the doom and gloom will happen, and then the sun will rise, and the rain will come, and the sun will dry it out. I guarantee you, if you can learn how to be poor and get every ounce of, enjoyment out of the struggle, work 3 jobs, put it, strategically set yourself up. Like I said, I'm going to do some videos that'll help with that. But, I was in full-on renal failure this year, and I had been dealing with it for 2 years before that, but my kidneys just left. I mean, they were 18 and then 5 and then dialysis. And man, I'm telling you, the resurrection that I feel is a true feeling that I have. And I wasn't sure I was going to live. And I was okay with that. If they needed me up in heaven more than they need me down here, all my family and my girls and my grandchildren and my wife and everybody, they're all going to come and meet me after I ride on ahead before everyone else. So I'm okay with that. That's going to happen. And then I'm going to greet them when they come. And if God wants me to be here and be doing more things on this earth that I can, make him proud that he saved me, well, that's what I'm going to do. And if that means I'm working in a soup kitchen, or if I'm, giving a talk, or I'm educating some people, I mean, the thing about my life is I get to do what I want. And if I can show others, especially ones that are being challenged, how they can do that for themselves, then that's what I'm going to do. So please, don't take any of this stuff personally. Think about the moves that we're going to make today in the overall plan, and I'll help you guys make a plan. I mean, if somebody in these comments wants to say, hey, Mark, do a live or a podcast or whatever with me, let's talk about my specific problems, let's talk about my specific situation, I will do that. But if no one told you that they love you today, I love you, and there isn't anything you can do about that.